Victoria Hayes pressed her face against the cold airplane window as the plane began its descent into New York City. Below her, millions of lights sparkled like scattered diamonds against the dark canvas of night. Her heart raced with excitement and terror in equal measure. At 26, she was leaving everything familiar behind in small-town Ohio to chase a dream that seemed both impossible and inevitable. The weight of her camera bag on her shoulder felt heavier than usual, filled not just with equipment but with hope. She had saved every penny from her job at the local portrait studio, sold her car, and even borrowed money from her grandmother to make this move possible. Her portfolio contained her best work, photographs that captured moments of raw human emotion, but she wondered if they would be enough in a city where talent was as common as coffee shops. A harsh welcome to the Big Apple. 3 weeks later, Victoria sat in her tiny shared apartment in Queens, staring at a pile of rejection letters. The New York photography world was brutal, and her savings were disappearing faster than morning mist. Her roommate Emma Rodriguez, an aspiring actress who waited tables to pay rent, found her crying over a bowl of instant noodles. "You know what you need?" Emma said, plopping down beside her with a newspaper. "A real job. Look at this." She pointed to a classified ad that seemed too good to be true. "Personal assistant to CEO. Excellent pay. Immediate start. Discretion required." Victoria wiped her eyes. "Emma, I came here to be a photographer, not to fetch coffee for some rich guy. And you will be," Emma insisted. "But right now, you need money to survive while you build your career." This could be perfect. Rich people always need photographers for events, right? Against her better judgment, Victoria found herself calling the number the next morning. A crisp voice answered, scheduling her for an interview that very afternoon at Cross Industries. The tower in the clouds Cross Industries occupied 30 floors of a gleaming skyscraper in Manhattan. As Victoria rode the elevator to the top floor, she tried to calm her nerves. She had borrowed Emma's best blazer and practiced her interview answers. But nothing could have prepared her for what awaited. The elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area that looked more like a modern art museum. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of Central Park. A woman with silver hair and kind eyes approached her. "You must be Victoria. I'm Margaret Chen, Mr. Cross's executive coordinator. Thank you for coming on such short notice." Margaret led her through halls lined with abstract paintings and sculptures. Victoria tried not to gawk, but the luxury was overwhelming. They stopped before massive oak doors. "Mr. Cross is finishing a call with Tokyo. He'll see you in just a moment." Margaret's smile was reassuring. "Don't be nervous, dear. He's actually quite nice once you get to know him." The man behind the empire. When the doors finally opened, Victoria stepped into an office that could have housed her entire apartment. But it wasn't the space that took her breath away. It was the man standing with his back to her, silhouetted against the window. Sebastian Cross was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his fingers through it. When he turned around, Victoria found herself looking into the most striking gray eyes she'd ever seen. There was something haunted about them, a depth that spoke of experiences far beyond his 34 years. "Miss Hayes," he said, his voice deeper than she'd expected. "Please, have a seat." Victoria sat across from his desk, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. Sebastian studied her resume, and she found herself studying him. He was undeniably handsome, but there was something guarded about him, as if he was holding part of himself back from the world. "Your background is in photography," he noted. "This position would be quite different from anything you've done before." "I'm a quick learner," Victoria replied, "and I understand the need for discretion in high-level business." Something flickered in his eyes. "Discretion is essential in this role. I travel frequently, work long hours, require someone who can adapt to changing situations without question." Their interview continued for 30 minutes, but Victoria felt like they were having two conversations. The surface one about schedules and responsibilities, and another, unspoken one that crackled with an energy she couldn't name. "When can you start?" Sebastian asked finally. Victoria blinked. "You're offering me the job?" "Margaret runs background checks on all candidates before they reach my office. You're qualified. You need the work. Something tells me you won't be easily intimidated." His smile was slight but genuine. "Is Monday too soon?" Glimpses behind the mask. Victoria's first week at Cross Industries was a whirlwind of learning schedules, managing calls and trying to anticipate Sebastian's needs before he voiced them. She discovered he was brilliant but demanding, fair but private, and surprisingly thoughtful in small ways. He remembered she took her coffee with cream but no sugar. When she mentioned missing Ohio's autumn leaves, he had Margaret move her desk near a window with a view of Central Park. When she worked late, he made sure she had a car service home to Queens. But there were moments when she caught him staring out the window with an expression of profound sadness. Once she found him holding a photograph face down on his desk. When he noticed her watching, he quickly slipped it into a drawer. "Sir, your 3 o'clock appointment is here," she announced one Thursday afternoon. "Cancel it," he said without looking up from his computer. "But it's the quarterly review with the board members." "I said cancel it, Victoria." His tone was sharp, but she heard something else underneath. Pain. She approached his desk carefully. "Is everything all right?" Sebastian finally looked at her, and for a moment, his carefully constructed walls crumbled. "What's today's date?" "October 15th. He closed his eyes briefly. "It's been 8 years." Victoria didn't know what he meant, but she understood grief when she saw it. "Would you like me to reschedule everything for the rest of the day?" "That won't be necessary. I just need a moment." But Victoria was already at her desk, quietly moving his appointments and fielding calls. When she brought him tea instead of his usual coffee an hour later, he looked surprised. "My grandmother always said tea was better for healing," she explained softly. Sebastian studied her face as if seeing her clearly for the first time. "Thank you, Victoria. That was very thoughtful." The photo that changed everything 2 weeks later. Victoria was organizing files in Sebastian's office when a photograph slipped from between some contracts. It showed a young woman with long auburn hair and a bright smile, sitting on what looked like a college campus. She was beautiful in an effortless way, the kind of person who lit up every room she entered. "That's Carolyn." Sebastian's voice came from behind her. Victoria turned, the photo still in her hands. "I'm sorry, it fell out of the contracts." "It's all right." He took the picture gently, his thumb brushing over the girl's face. "We met in college. She was studying art history, and I was just a computer science nerd with big dreams. She's beautiful," Victoria said softly. "She was." Sebastian's voice was barely above a whisper. "She died in a car accident 8 years ago. October 15th. The pieces fell into place. The sadness, the distance, the walls he kept around himself. I'm so sorry." Sebastian looked at her then, really looked at her. "You know what's strange? You have the same way of seeing people that she did. Caroline could look at someone and understand what they needed before they even knew it themselves." Victoria felt her heart skip. "That's a beautiful way to remember her." "Sometimes I wonder if she sent you here," Sebastian said, then seemed to realize how that sounded. "I'm sorry, that was inappropriate." "It wasn't," Victoria assured him. "And if she did, I'm honored to be here." A connection neither expected from that day forward. Something shifted between them. Sebastian began staying later at the office, and Victoria found reasons to linger as well. They would talk about everything from business strategies to their childhoods, from art to dreams they'd never shared with anyone else. One evening, as rain drummed against the windows, Sebastian found Victoria editing photos on her laptop during her break. "May I see?" he asked. Victoria hesitated, then turned the screen toward him. The images were from her walks around the city, candid shots of people lost in their own moments, an elderly man feeding pigeons in the park, a child chasing bubbles, a couple sharing an umbrella. "These are extraordinary," Sebastian breathed. "You have a gift for capturing emotion. Thank you." "It's what I came to New York to do, actually." "Then why are you working for me?" Victoria laughed. "Because even artists need to eat." Sebastian was quiet for a long moment, studying her photographs. "I have an idea. Cross Industries sponsors several charity events each year. We always hire photographers, but they're usually more focused on networking than art. Would you be interested in shooting our gala next month?" Victoria's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely. It would be in addition to your assistant duties, of course. But I think you could create something beautiful." As Victoria looked into his eyes, she saw something she hadn't noticed before. It wasn't just professional interest or charity. It was the look of a man who had found something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. "I'd love to," she whispered. Neither of them realized it yet, but their professional relationship was about to become something much more complicated, much more beautiful, and much more dangerous to their carefully guarded hearts. The rain continued to fall against the windows as they sat together in the golden light of his office. Two souls who had found each other in the most unexpected place. Victoria had come to New York seeking her dreams, but she was about to discover that sometimes the most important dreams are the ones you never saw. It's coming. The Cross Industries Charity Gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, transformed into a glittering wonderland of crystal chandeliers and elegant flower arrangements. Victoria arrived 2 hours early with her camera equipment, her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and terror. This was her first major photography assignment in New York, and she was determined not to disappoint Sebastian. She moved through the empty halls like a ghost, testing lighting angles and finding the perfect spots to capture candid moments. The museum's marble columns and soaring ceilings provided a breathtaking backdrop, and Victoria could already envision the shots she wanted to create. "You're here early." Sebastian's voice echoed through the space. Victoria turned to find him adjusting his black tie, looking devastatingly handsome in his tailored tuxedo. Her breath caught in her throat, and she had to remind herself that this was still her boss. Despite the way her pulse quickened whenever he was near, "I wanted to get familiar with the space before the guests arrive," she said, lifting her camera. "The lighting changes dramatically as the sun sets." Sebastian nodded, watching as she moved with professional grace, adjusting settings and framing shots. "You know what you're doing, I hope so," Victoria admitted. "This is the biggest event I've ever photographed. You'll be brilliant," Sebastian said with such certainty that Victoria felt her confidence surge. "Just remember to capture the moments between the moments. That's where the real story lives." As the evening progressed, Victoria discovered that Sebastian had been right. The real magic happened in the quiet seconds between speeches, in the gentle way elderly couples still held hands, in the proud smile of a father watching his daughter network with confidence. Her camera captured laughter, tears, hope, and dreams. An unexpected encounter. Victoria was changing memory cards when a woman's voice cut through the gentle hum of conversation. Well. Sebastian Cross has hired quite the little photographer." Victoria looked up to see a stunning blonde woman in a midnight. It's a blue gown that probably cost more than Victoria's rent for 3 months. Her smile was perfectly white and completely cold. "I'm sorry, have we met?" Victoria asked politely. "Patricia Wellington," the woman said, extending a manicured hand. "I'm sure Sebastian has mentioned me. We have quite a history." Something in Patricia's tone made Victoria's stomach tighten. "I handle Mr. Cross's professional schedule, not his personal life." Patricia laughed, a sound like breaking glass. How refreshingly naive. "Tell me, dear, do you really think a man like Sebastian Cross hired a small-town nobody for her organizational skills?" Before Victoria could respond, Patricia had melted back into the crowd, leaving behind only the lingering scent of expensive perfume and doubt. The truth about Patricia later that evening. As Victoria packed her equipment, Margaret approached with 2 glasses of champagne. "You did beautiful work tonight," the older woman said. "I saw some of your shots on the camera display. Truly stunning." "Thank you," Victoria said, accepting the champagne gratefully. "Margaret, can I ask you something?" "Of course, dear. Who is Patricia Wellington?" Margaret's expression darkened slightly. "Ah, I see you've met the Ice Queen." Patricia and Sebastian were engaged 2 years ago. It was more of a business arrangement than a love match, though I don't think Sebastian saw it that way at first. Victoria's heart sank. What happened? Patricia showed her true colors when she thought Sebastian wasn't recovering from Caroline's death fast enough for her timeline. She told him he needed to get over his dead girlfriend and focus on their future. The engagement ended that night. Victoria set down her champagne, her hands suddenly unsteady. "She seemed to think there was something inappropriate about my hiring." Margaret snorted. "Patricia Wellington wouldn't recognize genuine kindness if it wore a name tag. Sebastian hired you because you're competent, discreet, and you treat him like a human being instead of a bank account. Don't let that woman's poison get into your head." A moment of vulnerability. The museum had emptied except for the cleanup crew when Victoria finished packing her equipment. She found Sebastian on the museum's rooftop terrace, his bow tie undone and his jacket slung over the railing. The city sprawled below them, a carpet of lights stretching to the horizon. The event was a success, she said, joining him at the railing. I think we raised more money than projected, thanks to your photographs, Sebastian said. I saw a few on your camera display. They're going to be incredible. They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes, the cool autumn air stirring Victoria's hair. Finally, Sebastian spoke. Patricia found you tonight, didn't she? Victoria looked at him in surprise. How did you know? I saw her talking to you and you've been different since then. Distant. Sebastian turned to face her fully. What did she say? Victoria hesitated, then decided on honesty. She implied that you hired me for reasons that weren't entirely professional. Sebastian's jaw tightened. And what do you think? I think, Victoria said carefully, that Patricia Wellington is a woman who's used to getting what she wants, and doesn't handle rejection well. That's a diplomatic way of putting it. Sebastian's laugh was humorless. Patricia sees the world as a chess game, where people are either useful pieces or obstacles to be removed. I should have known she'd target you. Target me? Why? Sebastian was quiet for so long that Victoria thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, because she's smart enough to see what I'm trying not to acknowledge. Which is... Sebastian turned to meet her eyes, and Victoria saw something raw and vulnerable in his expression. That somewhere along the way, you stopped being just my assistant. The kiss that complicated everything. Words hung between them like a bridge neither was sure they should cross. Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs as Sebastian stepped closer. Victoria, he said softly, I know this complicates things. I know I'm your boss, and you came here to build your photography career. It's not to get involved with someone like me. Someone like you. Victoria's voice was breathless. Someone who comes with baggage and enemies and a past he can't seem to let go of completely. Victoria reached up and touched his face gently. Sebastian, we all have pasts. They make us who we are, but they don't have to define who we become. The first kiss was soft, tentative, a question asked and answered. The second was deeper, more certain, full of all the longing they'd been trying to ignore for weeks. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. This changes everything, Sebastian murmured against her forehead. I know, Victoria whispered back. Are you sure you want to complicate your life with mine? Victoria looked into his eyes, seeing past the wealth and power to the man who still grieved his first love. Who worked 18-hour days, partly to avoid going home to an empty apartment. Who remembered how she took her coffee and made sure she got home safely every night. I'm sure, she said. The morning after Truth, Victoria woke in her queen's apartment the next morning with Emma staring at her. Suspiciously, you have that look, Emma announced. What look? The look women get when something significant has happened in the romance department. Spill, Victoria told Emma everything while they shared coffee and leftover pizza for breakfast. Emma listened without interruption until Victoria finished with the kiss on the museum rooftop. So you're dating your billionaire boss? Emma summarized. That's either the best romantic comedy setup ever or a complete disaster waiting to happen. Thanks for the pep talk. Victoria said dryly. I'm just saying. Honey, make sure you know what you're getting into. Rich guys live in a different world. Not everyone in that world is going to welcome a girl from Ohio with open arms. As if summoned by Emma's words. Victoria's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Enjoy him while you can, small-town girl. Some of us don't give up so easily. Victoria stared at the message, her blood running cold. What is it? Emma asked. Victoria showed her the text. Emma's expression darkened. Patricia. Has to be. Victoria set the phone down with shaking hands. The office dynamic shifts Monday. Morning brought a new tension to the office. Sebastian was professional, but warm. Their shared secret creating an undercurrent of electricity every time their hands brushed passing documents, or their eyes met across the conference room. But Victoria was acutely aware that others might be watching, analyzing, judging. When Margaret complimented her gala photographs, Victoria wondered if there was a knowing look in her eyes. When the mail clerk chatted a bit longer than usual, she wondered if gossip was already spreading. The photographs from the gala turned out better than Victoria had dared hope. She'd captured genuine moments of joy, connection, and generosity that told the story of the evening beautifully. Sebastian had them displayed in the company lobby, with a small plaque crediting V. Hayes Photography. "You're going to be booked solid after this," Sebastian said, finding her admiring the display. "Is that a problem?" Victoria asked. "If my photography career takes off..." Sebastian considered this seriously. "It would be a problem if I tried to hold you back. But I won't do that. Your talent deserves to be shared with the world, and if it means less time for assistant duties, then I'll hire another assistant. But I'd like to think," Sebastian's voice dropped lower, "that you might still find time for me in your busy schedule." The storm clouds gather. Their relationship might have continued developing naturally if Patricia Wellington hadn't decided to escalate her campaign. The first sign of trouble came when Sebastian's biggest client suddenly demanded a meeting to reassess their partnership. "What brought this on?" Victoria asked as Sebastian prepared for the meeting. "I'm not sure, but I have my suspicions," Sebastian said grimly. He was right to be suspicious. The client had received concerning information about Sebastian's unprofessional conduct with employees. Though no specific allegations were made, the implications were clear. "This is Patricia's handiwork," Sebastian told Victoria after the meeting. "She's trying to destroy my reputation by targeting our relationship. Then maybe we should cool things down until..." "No," Sebastian's voice was firm. "I won't let her manipulate us into hiding what we feel. That's what she wants, Victoria. She wants to prove that she still has power over my life. But as more clients began asking questions and industry gossip started swirling, Victoria began to wonder if loving Sebastian Cross was worth the price they might both have to pay. The war for Sebastian's heart and Victoria's future was just beginning. And Patricia Wellington was not planning to fight fair. 3 weeks after the gala, Victoria found herself sitting in Sebastian's office at dawn, both of them surrounded by legal documents and financial reports. Patricia's campaign had escalated beyond simple gossip. She had convinced 2 major investors to pull their funding, claiming Sebastian's personal entanglements were affecting his business judgment. "She's methodical," Sebastian said, rubbing his tired eyes. "Every attack is calculated to look like legitimate business concerns rather than personal revenge." Victoria studied the timeline they'd created on the whiteboard. But that's also her weakness. She's so focused on appearing professional that she's leaving a trail of her real motivations. "What do you mean?" Victoria stood and pointed to their notes. "Look at the timing. Every concerned investor contacted you within 24 hours of Patricia having lunch with them. Every anonymous tip about our relationship came right after she was seen at the same restaurants or clubs as the people spreading rumors." Sebastian looked at the pattern Victoria had identified. "She's not as subtle as she thinks she is." "Exactly. And I have an idea, but you're not going to like it." Sebastian waited. Knowing that expression on Victoria's face meant she'd thought of something risky, but potentially brilliant. "We need to give her what she thinks she wants," Victoria continued. "Let her believe she's winning, and she'll get careless." The pretend break-up the plan was simple, but painful. Victoria and Sebastian would act as though Patricia's campaign had succeeded in driving them apart. They would be coldly professional at work, and Victoria would start publicly dating someone else to make the charade convincing. "This feels wrong," Sebastian said as they worked out the details. "Like I'm letting her win." "It's not letting her win if it's part of a bigger strategy," Victoria assured him. "Trust me." Emma's friend Jake, an actor between jobs, agreed to play Victoria's fake boyfriend. He was charming and handsome, and when Victoria brought him to Cross Industries for lunch, she could practically feel the gossip spreading through the building. Patricia took the bait immediately. Within days, the attacks on Sebastian's business began to slow. Patricia even called him directly to suggest a friendly dinner to discuss potential collaborations. "She thinks she's won," Sebastian reported to Victoria after accepting the dinner invitation. "Now we need proof of what she's been doing." The gathering stormed while Sebastian prepared for his dinner with Patricia.
How Victoria was working her own angle.
She had noticed that Patricia always seemed to know too much about Sebastian's private business dealings. Someone inside Cross Industries had to be feeding her information. Victoria spent hours reviewing security logs, email patterns, and employee access records. The breakthrough came when she discovered that someone had been accessing Sebastian's confidential files from a computer in the accounting department after hours. The security footage showed David Kim, a junior accountant who had been passed over for promotion twice, copying files onto a flash drive. When Victoria confronted him, he broke down and confessed that Patricia had offered him a job at her company in exchange for inside information. She said Sebastian would never notice someone like me, David sobbed. She promised I'd finally get the recognition I deserved. Victoria felt a mixture of anger and pity. Patricia was skilled at finding people's vulnerabilities and exploiting them. But David's confession gave them exactly what they needed. The dinner trap Sebastian's dinner with Patricia took place at La Bernardine, one of New York's most exclusive restaurants. Patricia had chosen the location, clearly wanting to be seen with Sebastian in a place where the city's elite would notice and speculate. She arrived in a stunning red dress, her smile perfect and predatory. "Sebastian, you look wonderful. I'm so glad you finally came to your senses about that little photographer." Sebastian played his role perfectly, appearing conflicted and somewhat defeated. "You were right about the complications. Mixing business and personal life was a mistake." "Of course I was right," Patricia purred. "I always have your best interests at heart. Now, about those clients you've been losing. I might be able to help you get them back." As the evening progressed, Patricia became more confident, more careless with her words. She hinted at her role in Sebastian's business troubles, laughed about how easy it had been to manipulate that naive little photographer, and even bragged about having inside sources at Cross Industries. What Patricia didn't know was that Sebastian was wearing a wire, and Victoria was recording every word from a van parked outside the restaurant. The truth comes out the next morning. Sebastian called an emergency board meeting. Patricia arrived uninvited, clearly expecting to be welcomed as Sebastian's savior. Instead, she found herself facing a room full of stern-faced board members, and a very different Sebastian than the defeated man from dinner. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sebastian began, "I want to share with you some recordings from last night that reveal the true source of our recent business difficulties," as Patricia's own voice filled the room. Detailing her campaign of sabotage and manipulation, her perfect composure finally cracked. She tried to deny it, to claim the recordings were fake. But the evidence was overwhelming. "You'll never prove anything," she hissed at Sebastian as security escorted her out. "And that girl will never be good enough for your world." "Maybe not," Sebastian replied calmly. "But she's good enough for me." The real proposal, with Patricia's threats neutralized and David Kim cooperating with authorities in exchange for a second chance, Victoria expected things to return to normal. Instead, Sebastian seemed more distant than ever. He was polite, but formal, treating her like any other employee. After a week of this treatment, Victoria confronted him in his office after hours. "If you've decided this was all a mistake, just tell me," she said. "I can handle the truth." Sebastian looked up from his desk, and Victoria was startled by the exhaustion in his eyes. "It's not that simple." "Then explain it to me." Sebastian stood and walked to his window, the city lights reflecting in the glass. "Patricia was right about one thing. You don't belong in my world, Victoria. Not because you're not good enough, but because you're too good." Victoria felt her heart breaking. "That's not your decision to make, isn't it?" Sebastian turned to face her. "Look what happened when Patricia targeted you. Look how easily she was able to use our relationship to attack everything I've built. What happens when the next enemy comes along? Then we face them together," Victoria said firmly. "Sebastian, I didn't fall in love with your money or your position. I fell in love with the man who remembers how I take my coffee, who trusts me with his secrets, who sees my art and believes in my dreams." Sebastian's composure finally cracked. "I love you too much to put you through this kind of life, and I love you too much to let you make this decision alone." The choice that changes everything. Victoria moved closer to Sebastian, taking his hands in hers. "Do you remember what you told me about Caroline? That she could see what people needed before they knew it themselves?" Sebastian nodded, not trusting his voice. Well, I can see what you need to. You need to stop punishing yourself for loving someone new. You need to stop letting your fear of loss prevent you from embracing what you've found. And you need to trust that love is stronger than whatever enemies we might face. Tears were streaming down Sebastian's face now. What if I lose you too? What if you don't? Victoria countered. What if we have 50 years together? What if we build something beautiful and strong enough to weather any storm? Don't you think that's worth the risk? Sebastian pulled her into his arms then, holding her like she was the most precious thing in his world. I'm terrified, he whispered against her hair. So am I, Victoria admitted, but I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. 6 months later, the small church in Victoria's Ohio hometown was decorated with autumn leaves and white roses. Victoria stood at the altar in her grandmother's wedding dress, altered to fit perfectly, looking radiant as she watched Sebastian walk down the aisle. He had insisted they do things her way in her hometown, surrounded by the people who had known and loved her long before she had dreams of New York City. His parents had flown in from Seattle, and even Margaret had made the trip, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. Emma stood as maid of honor, grinning through her tears. I can't believe my best friend is marrying a billionaire, she had whispered before the ceremony. But more importantly, I can't believe how happy you look. As Sebastian took Victoria's hands at the altar, spoke his vows in a voice strong and sure. Victoria, you walked into my life when I had given up on love. You showed me that the heart has room for both honoring the past and embracing the future. You are my present and my forever. Victoria's vows were simpler, but no less powerful. Sebastian, you taught me that dreams don't always come in the package we expect. I came to New York looking for success, but I found something better. I found home in your heart, the beginning of forever, 1 year later. Victoria stood in the gallery space of Cross Industries' New Arts Foundation, surrounded by photographs that told the story of love, hope, and second chances. Her exhibition, Moments Between Moments, had drawn visitors from across the country. Sebastian found her standing before her favorite piece, a candid shot of an elderly couple dancing at the charity gala, lost in each other despite the crowd around them. Any regrets? He asked, slipping his arms around her waist. Victoria leaned back against him, her left hand displaying the simple but elegant wedding ring he'd chosen. Only that it took us so long to stop fighting what we both knew was inevitable. And what's that? That some love stories are worth waiting for, worth fighting for, and worth every risk along the way. Sebastian kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, still amazed that this brilliant, brave woman had chosen him. I love you, Mrs. Cross. I love you too, Victoria replied. Now and always. As they stood together in the gallery, surrounded by images that captured the beauty in ordinary moments, they both knew they had found something extraordinary. Love had indeed conquered all, not by avoiding the storms, but by weathering them together, hand in hand, heart to heart. Their story had begun with a desperate girl from Ohio, taking a job she never wanted, and a lonely billionaire who had given up on love. It became a testament to the truth that the best things in life often come disguised as complications. And that real love isn't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone perfect for you. In the end, Victoria had found more than her American dream. She had found her American love story, and it was better than anything she could have imagined.